Hello everyone. Today we will have two interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listened to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail. Broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. Like most, everything is standard here. My wife betrayed me after many years. Although it seemed that everything was fine. I am 32 years old. My wife is 34 years old. We have a small child. This is a son. He is 6 years old. I met my wife in the first year of medical university. At the end of the first year, we started a relationship. We had a lot of common interests, and I really liked her. Obviously, I just seemed stable and promising to her. All in all, a good boy. She told me later. She just wanted male attention. She just wanted male attention. She just wanted to get married like all girls. As soon as we graduated from university, we got married right away. The result is 5 years in a civil marriage and 10 years in an official one. My wife's temper was very heavy and hysterical. When my wife didn't like something, she could make an hour-long scandal and beat her head against the wall. My eyes bulged from what was happening. But after her tantrums, I didn't pay attention to her. She always put up first. She apologized and said how much she loves me. Her words have always misled me. After that, we had sex as a sign of reconciliation. I've always forgiven my wife. After graduating from university, I worked in a city hospital. I really liked this job and I was on good terms with my superiors. I had the first place in the employee rating. It was like a board of honor. Many patients have always wanted to see me again because I treated my job well and treated everyone with respect. For 3 years, my wife has been telling me that I am not a man. Because my salary was not enough for a vacation, I couldn't buy a place for myself. I couldn't buy an expensive car. Well, I thought my beloved wife was really suffering. So I quit and moved to a private company. By the way, it wasn't that easy. The competition was huge, about 15 people for one place. My salary increased 5 times and gradually grew upwards. After a while, I bought my own apartment. Later, we had a baby. My wife stayed at home and raised a child. After the birth of the child, I provided my family very well financially. We had everything: an expensive car, a vacation near the ocean, paid clinics, branded clothes, expensive gifts to my wife. My mother and grandmother actively helped my wife with the baby and daily life. They treated my wife very well. My wife was constantly unhappy and said that they were interfering in our lives. My wife started fighting for no reason. Because of her, I began to have frequent conflicts with my relatives. My wife didn't like it terribly that I wasn't rude to my relatives. I've always been diplomatic and tried to smooth out the conflict between everyone. After a while, my wife said that she was bored to stay at home. She asked me to help her find a good job. I helped her, and she got a job at a pharmaceutical company where my friends worked. In this company, the salary was small. But for the girl, it was a good income. From that moment, hell began. My wife started throwing tantrums and being rude to me. Our apartment was a mess. She started acting suspiciously. My wife often locked herself in the bathroom with her mobile phone. I, the horned deer, sincerely believed her that it was business conversations or her friends. After a while, I find out that as soon as my wife got a new job, she immediately had a lover at work. I was told by my friends who worked together with my wife. The lover was single and several years older than me. He was worse than me in every way. But this is my opinion. His salary was much lower than mine. But he was romantic and took good care of my wife. He wasn't as callous and soulless as I was. My wife did not deny anything and said that it was not a mistake, but a great love. When I heard this, I demanded that my wife pack her things and get out of my house. My wife packed her things and left. After that, in theory, everything should have been fine with me. But no, I'm a real idiot. 6 months later, I forgave my wife and she came back to me. Obviously, they did not work out with a lover. But to be honest, my child played a big role. I love him very much. My wife asked for forgiveness and wanted me to give her a second chance. I gave my wife a second chance, but in vain. For 2 years, I lived like hell. I was being eaten by the worm of doubts. I started worrying about pressure and my self-esteem dropped to zero. I gained 30 kg of excess weight. When I was stressed, I ate a lot. My hands began to peel off and my heart ached periodically. The doctor said it was because of nerves. My intuition has never failed me. And just recently, we were vacationing on the ocean and I saw my wife's correspondence with the same lover. After reading the correspondence, I was shocked. Romance, sex, intimate photos and videos. In general, all this time they continued their relationship. After what I saw, I kicked my wife out again. This choice was final, and I filed for divorce. I don't want to live like this anymore. Time has passed, and now I live alone. I decided to change my life for the better. I started working out in the gym and began to carefully monitor my health. By the way, I met a new girl at the gym. We have nothing serious yet, but maybe everything is ahead. My wife tried to come back again. Maybe she had a fight with her boyfriend again, but this time I was relentless. In general, friends, do not repeat my mistakes and live happily. Before we move on to the opinion of the author of the channel, we will have one more short story. Let's go. 40 years old. My wife is 36 years old. We've been married for 3 years. We both have a second marriage. Our first marriages broke up because of our affair. At first, everything was fine, and we had an unearthly love. We met when I was 30 and my wife was 26. We both cheated on our significant other for 5 years. The smell of her body was driving me crazy. Having lost my mind, I left my family, which had a loving wife and 2 children. My daughter is now 19 years old and my son is 13 years old. My new wife and I tried to make children, but we didn't succeed. She and her last husband had problems with this. We had miscarriages twice. After that, my new wife said she wouldn't try again because it's too hard psychologically. She insisted on taking a foster child, but I was against it. Why do I need other people's children? It was 2 of my own. If I could conceive my third, that's another matter. I left everything I had to my first wife. When I left, I said that I would pay all financial expenses. I was investing in making good money. My first wife didn't want a divorce at all. She wasn't going to divide the property either. I remember her saying, "Do what you want." She didn't even want to take money from me. I had to leave the money in her apartment with a note, "You can take this money or throw it away." She took the money, bought an apartment by the ocean. She rarely goes there with the children. I didn't understand why she did it, why she bought this apartment. It would be better to put money on deposit and receive interest. When we lived together, she didn't work for a long time. After the divorce, she got a job as a radio editor. My new wife was constantly offended when I went to my children. As a result, I began to visit my children very rarely. My daughter didn't want to talk to me, but my son was happy when I visited him. Now I see my children once every 6 months. Now I understand that I betrayed my children. But I was blinded by love. When I started living with my new wife, her husband went through all the circles of hell. He begged for forgiveness on his knees. He tried to beat me twice, but it didn't work out. In the end, she left him for me anyway. I rented her an apartment next to my office. We spent time in the evenings and on weekends. A year later, she told me that she wanted children. She wanted to be a wife, not a mistress. I loved her madly and agreed. My relatives were shocked. They thought I had the perfect family. I left with my new wife on a honeymoon trip to Florida. When we returned, we bought an apartment. We lived like in paradise, and it seemed to me that she was my dearest and closest person. The only thing that has brought darkness into our lives is the absence of children. It seemed to me that everything was fine with us. But 6 months ago, I began to notice a strange behavior of my wife. I began to realize that she had a lover. She started hiding Hero mobile phone. She was often late at work. She came home several times with flowers. To my question, who gave it? She replied that the students. But I know that she said the same thing to her first husband when I gave her flowers. We rarely have sex, but there are other signs of infidelity. I am technically literate as a person. My first education is a software engineer. I took control of all our home computers and our mobile phone. I installed hidden cameras in all the rooms. I even installed a camera in her car. What have I discovered? What have I discovered? She had sex with her lover in my bed. When I saw this video, I almost lost my mind. At least mentally, I was already ready for this. I wanted to take my gun and shoot them both, but then I realized it wasn't worth it. I've been drinking alcohol for 2 months. I was lucky that my best friend came and took my gun and knives from me. Maybe I would have done something bad. I was in a daze at all and stopped working. Many thanks to my friend. He was my right-hand man. My company worked like clockwork. Once I was drinking alone and lost consciousness. My friend came to visit me and called an ambulance. I was lucky the doctors helped me. If it wasn't for my friend, I'm already be dead. As a result, I returned to my first wife. Thank her for letting me come back. The morale of this story is very simple. If you beat off someone else's wife and she easily left for you, she will leave you just as easily. Good luck to everyone and don't repeat my mistakes. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new videos. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. By tradition, I want to with both hero strength and patience. I will never tire of repeating that each of you should never forgive treason. The second hero was lucky that his wife allowed him to return to the family. He understands that perfectly well. Men are psychologically different from girls. It is more difficult for men to transfer a divorce. I recommend that the second hero never cheat on his wife again. Our first hero begins a new stage in his life. This is a second chance at a new life. I'm sure the first hero will be fine. His wife will never find her happiness. It's time. Tested. Many stories on my channel tell about the same thing. Therefore, never betray your soulmate and never forgive the betrayal of your soulmate. All the best and happiness. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.